going to start us off now with a centering practice. So this was developed by me in the Human Nature Partnership, which is a company that I have, and it's based on some evidence about how spending time mindfully in nature is good for us, essentially. So I'll ask us to start with just by sitting or standing and closing your eyes and giving yourself about a minute to concentrate on some sounds that I'm going to play. So you can open your eyes now, but make your gaze a soft one. It's almost as if you're looking from behind your eyes. And just quietly observe the sounds of the birds. Position them above you and below you and all around you, and take a listen. And then listen some more. So we're going to center now around 4 quadrants. Whilst we listen to those birds, the first is to extend upwards, lengthening our bodies. So ensuring that we're comfortable, lift up your head so that it's balanced. Ensure that your feet and your seat are firmly planted. And feel the sense of you as the conduit between the sky above you and the ground beneath. Keep breathing. And now extend your width. So as you breathe in and out with your rib cage, think about extending outwards into the space around you as you breathe. Think about your balance, your hips, your shoulders, the weight of your head on your neck. Next, we're going to sense what's behind us. So listen for the birds behind us and a sense that they're supporting us. Think of the community that supports you. Think of where you've come from recently. And now, turn your attention to what's in front of you, the path ahead. What are the birds calling you to do? Where are they calling you to go? Feel the appreciation for the nature and the role it might play in your life as you move forward from today. Take a few more breaths and then we're going to slowly return to the room. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Diana now, who's going to lead us in a moment of reflection following that practice.
Yeah, if after this very precious moment of self-connection, you can have a moment of stillness and focus why you are here, which kind of curiosity brought you with us this evening or this morning, depending on your time zone. What would you like to take away from these 2 hours together or so? So if you can take a moment or two to just listen to what is emerging in your attention with these questions and notice what's the purpose that you want to bring with you, with us. And when you focus it, if you want, you can share it in the chat so we can use your words to also orient our presentations and what we want to share with you. Okay, so when you want, James.
Thank you everyone for sharing those comments. That's lovely. So the next part, this is the why. So I'm going to start by offering a definition to you. This is something I've been working with for a while. There's a diversity in this nature coaching movement, so you may have a different set of words, but hopefully you get the sense from what I'm going to share with you now. And for me, this underpins the way in which I've approached building this webinar with Diana today. So my belief is that nature-based coaching enables us to respond to both global and individual crises, and coaching often is about the individual. I think this gives us a global perspective that we can nest the individual within. So it's a partnership that responds to the planet, I think, as well as the person. I believe, and I think we can show, that connecting people to the natural world allows us to transform people's capacity and capability to be their best selves. And that's what coaching wants to do. So why not harness that as extra powers? And this gives us an opportunity not to do better in a kind of a us and them sense, but enhance our coaching practice. But most importantly, and we'll come to this again and again through the presentations, hopefully through the dialogue, is in the end, this is a way that we can ignite action for nature and our communities. And the science behind that is now really clear. Nature-connected people take more action for the environment. In other words, we care for what we love. So how do we develop that love? And we're clearly at a time of crisis. We know this. Just in terms of wildlife, we've lost something like 2/3 of wildlife biomass in the last 50 years. A third of species across the world are at risk. This fine fellow, I think it's a fellow, might not be, is a West African black rhino. And this subspecies went extinct in 2011. It's just one of a huge number of animals that we've lost from the face of this planet forever. Originally, this rhino would have been found across 15 sub-Saharan countries. But by 1980, only a few hundred were left as a result of mainly poaching for rhino horn, but also lack of real concerted organized action. This species has been on the planet for longer than the evolution of either humans or great apes. And unfortunately, there are 2 other subspecies of black rhino that are also now extinct. And there are other impacts from the Anthropocene, right, which are more keenly felt perhaps on people than the loss of a rhino, a long way away. Powerful and emotional, I think, as I find that. There are 20 morbidities resulting from a lack of physical activity, and a rough cost in England of that inactivity is about £8 billion a year. In other words, there are 20 morbidities that can be prevented through physical activity. In the pandemic in America, there are, within 1 year, an 11-fold increase in anxiety and depression. And we know that in most of the countries I'm sure that we're dialing in from today, there are there is a mental ill health epidemic. And some fundamental things like access to nature is extremely unequal. And there are major issues of environmental justice. A third of Americans lack access to a local park, for example. And sadly, in Britain, if you're a minority ethnic person from a minority ethnic community, you're 4 times less likely to have an outdoor space at home in which there could be nature. However, we don't lead by fear and negativity. That context and that imperative is there. Those facts are there, and it's important that we know them. But it's also a time of active hope. So just the flip side to the rhino is, there are lots of examples now growing, especially in the global north, of reintroductions of wildlife, of rewilding programs, of creating natural infrastructure to help us repair and put right some of the harm that we've done, and help us be more sustainable in the way that we work in future. I guess you all know what this is, but it's a European beaver. The European beaver was almost extinct. So they got down to 1,200 individuals in Europe and Eurasia in just 8 locations, but have now been reintroduced to 24 nations where they were formerly extinct. And that's not important just because they're funny looking and cute, but because they're keystone species, they're water managers. They make better water environments for all wildlife, but also for people, because they control through their dams and their engineering stormwater flow. Water quality improves. So there are real reasons to be hopeful. And if you just look at some statistics that relate to nature connectedness, I think we ought to feel filled with active hope. There are over 50 research studies now that show that nature connection increases life satisfaction. And there's really good science that shows that people are much more likely to have higher self-esteem if they're connected to nature than if they're not. Now, what is it we deal with as coaches so much of the time? Confidence. What do I want in my life? How can I be happy? How do I be satisfied? Nature connectedness offers us a route to that. We also know, I mentioned that more nature connected people take more action for the environment, and in fact almost twice as much. And one of the reasons that seems to be the case is because in nature we can feel autonomous, we can feel competent, we can experience relatedness without judgment. And those of us working in leadership coaching know that these are classic features of what we want to create for staff in organizations, right? And nature offers us a completely different way of thinking about that. Recent work has shown in England that 81% of people have said that they're happier when they're in nature. And in lockdown, 73% of more people are connecting with nature in lockdown than they did before. That is huge. And in my life, 30 years as an environmentalist, we've never seen figures like this. And some of the spin-offs of that are some really interesting work that has looked at what happens when we experience awe in nature, that sense of a greater other. What happens is we make better decisions. They're more ethical decisions. We're more generous, and we're more pro-social. We're more community-minded. So there's a snapshot of why, and a calling for us all to start to understand some of this and apply it. And how we apply it now is over to Diana.
Okay, so I'll share my presentation too. Just let me take it. Okay, so, you should be seeing my full screen slide, I think, in a moment. Okay, just in case it doesn't, just raise your voice and let me know. Otherwise, it's fine. And I go on. So far, we've understood from James' words that nature connection is good for us and is also good for our planet. So nature connection can also be good for coaching. And I'll just add my perspective to James' words before introducing you to some hints and suggestions for you to start integrating nature in your practice. So let's first say that we cannot facilitate nature connectedness and get all the benefits that we've just heard if we don't have it and cultivate it firsthand. So as far as I've seen in the chat, many of you are here because they also feel a call to work with nature. Many of you already have a strong sense of belonging and love for nature, and this is the foundation of your effectiveness in bringing nature into your sessions as well. Let me just recall a definition of nature connectedness that we find in this research by Meyer and Franz. They say the sensation of belonging to a wider natural community. And let me stress that word, sensation. So nature connectedness is not a thought. We of course know that we are part of nature, but knowing it in our minds doesn't really mean that we also feel it. But feeling it is what makes all the difference about it. So the ability to feel ourselves, to feel others, and the planet is the first and foremost competence that I see most of my clients and students struggle with. So the ability to empty the mind and trust the emergent knowledge that belongs to our bodies and to life when we find our interconnectedness to the wider cosmic body of the land, of the planet, and its inherent intelligence. This ability to really feel this embodied connection is what ignites something, is what makes is what creates a shift in our perception. And that's also crucial for me in my experience in the coaching sessions, because that's when insights emerge. And it's also evidence-based. Working with the body, shifting the way we use our brains from mostly left focused to more synergy between the right and left hemisphere of the brain is what allows us to get to more creative solutions, to find problem-solving strategies, to innovate our ways of thinking and looking at our challenges. So we want these shifts to happen in a session, and nature and body connection and sensory awareness expansion is, in my experience, a key to enable this shift. So by reviving our felt interconnection with the natural world, we are also reconnected with the essence of what it means to be human, which is being of the soil, being of the earth. So for me, the nature coach is a facilitator of reconnection. Being a nature coach means creating a space for the clients to reconnect with the essence of being human, being of the land, with being with their inner nature by reconnecting with the outer nature. So their authenticity as the leaders and impact makers that they can be and that we all can be can unfold. And this happens when we connect with the source, with the capital S. Okay, so let me break my approach down for you here in this slide. So nature coaching as at the heart of its practice, reconnecting the person, the client, with the vibrant intelligence of our bodies in direct connection with the intelligence of nature. So when we work as coaches, rooting the awareness down in the realm of feelings, sensations, and somatic awareness, we are opening our clients to the emergence of wider states of consciousness and self-perception, which leads to a better interconnection. This is all evidence-based. As I was saying in the chat, we're going to share with you a very nutrient PDF with lots of researches that we have found for you in the, of course, in the web, and that you will be able to access. And so all these statements are backed by scientific research. So opening to a different way of functioning in our brains, which means basically moving to alpha states where our brain waves slow down and become wider and slower, means better interconnection with the two different hemispheres of our brain, associated with the release of endorphins, the so-called well-being hormones, and dopamine release, and oxytocins as well, depending on the practices that you propose, which leads to increased self-confidence and well-being perceptions and better emotion regulations as well, which leads to wider possibilities for systemic thinking, long-term thinking. This is very nice research about decision-making with managers made by a professor at Bocconi University in Italy. And so this is very meaningful when you're working with leaders. So I usually frame a lot when I invite my clients to experiment with me the session with nature, or to work with embodied practices during the session. I always explain why it's reasonable to do that in a coaching session. And I always try to mention the evidence-based researches that can allow my client to better understand the framework and the reason why it has a meaning to do some kind of experiences. Especially when you work in the corporate environment, this can be very important. So having this vocabulary and some references is, in my experience, important, and that's why we have compiled a PDF for you to get to know all this even better. So not only we have these benefits when we work with the body awareness in nature, but we can also awaken the biophilic sentiment, which is the love of life, and awaken this embodied sense of belonging and co-participation with the natural world. So that this is the factor that actually awakens and develops pro-environment and pro-social behavior. All these, again, evidence-based. So this approach is good for the client and good for the planet. And these are some factors. So interweaving nature in a coaching session through embodied approach leads also to healing that foundational in the Western world approach to conceiving ourselves and nature, which is based in mechanicism and dualism, which has gone out of René Descartes' theories in the 17th century. So when we said cogito ergo sum, we are saying I think, therefore I am. So we have placed in the human brain all the existence, all the life, spoiling the natural realm of life, so that with positivism and industrialization and so on, we could spoil it. So in my opinion, in my perception, this is, and I'm a philosopher, this is really the root cause of our disconnected societies and lives today. And as Otto Scharmer at MIT says, the social crisis, the environmental crisis, and the spiritual crisis are different aspects of the same problem, which is rooted in our disconnected view of ourselves and our relationship with the world. Please make sure that you are muted, because I hear some background noises. So if you just can check if you're muted so that the audio is clean for everybody. So my proposal is to substitute cogito ergo sum with sensio ergo sum, which means I sense, therefore I am. And in feeling, we find ourselves belonging to the wider fabric of life. And we can move from ego consciousness to eco consciousness, which is, I think, also why we are here. Some of you were saying in the chat that you wish to make a greater impact on our societies and impact for the better the climate crisis. So where to start? Okay, how can you become a leader in coaching with nature, for nature? Just a few touches. Oh, I don't know why it's okay. Yeah, okay, it can work. So the mindset, we always start the journey in ourselves. So first thing is practice body connection, because we need to take our mind to heal from Cartesianism. And this we can do if we become friends with our primary house, which is our body. So one of my mantras is take the mind back to the body and the body back to the mind. Practice nature connection. So sit with nature, just stay with nature, be with nature without doing anything, just savoring slowness, emptiness, and silence with nature. Just these things can be profoundly healing from dualism and can really design a different inner landscape, interconnected, and where you also build your presence as a coach and deep listening capability. Sometimes I say that all that I bring in terms of presence and listening with my clients in the session, I learned it by listening to my trees, to my tree, to my apple tree in my garden, where I'm practicing deep listening since almost 15 years so far. So just a brief quote from John Young, and let me check also my timing because I don't want to be late. Okay, I still have some minutes. So it's not just about being in nature for a certain time, it's the quality of your presence and the attention that you pay to nature that makes it impactful. And last piece of the mindset of a nature coach, we work with nature, not in nature. For me, nature is a subject, not object. For me, nature is not a place to go, is the coach's partner. So some hints to start integrating nature in your next sessions. And a little disclaimer, all these hints that I'm going to share with you are just suggestions that you have to adapt to your client's needs and goals, and to yourself, of course, and your preferences. So find the appropriate way to weave in these ideas where and if applicable to your coaches. And now consider that these are really brief ideas, and to have you starting in your probably next coaching journey or next session to do something. So I always interweave some questions as I onboard new clients. In my check-in questionnaire, I ask, how would you feel about doing sessions outdoors with me, with nature? Do you already have some kind of somatic practice that you love doing? Have you ever experienced mindfulness or taken a forest bath? Because sometimes I like to integrate moments of stillness during a session. So I talk about what I like to propose, depending on the different circumstances of the session as well. And I assess the reaction or the perception of the client. So you may start to interweave some of these questions in your next onboarding process. I also ask questions, if relevant, for the coachee or for the specific goal of the coachees, about their interest in the impact in the climate conditions and the climate emergence, so that I can assess and understand if that's relevant for my client. And we discuss if it's okay to have some sessions with nature where he or she would like to go, or I propose a place, or sometimes when I do it in a company, it's the garden of the company, and we have to check if that's available and if it's a possibility and if it has the necessary privacy and nice acoustic environment that makes all the magic. So when I do sessions outdoors, sometimes I just open the session with a silent walk side by side, and I usually invite the coachee to guide me, and I just say, okay, just set yourself the intention to find a place where we can start our session and activate your intuition and follow it. And so we just take a very peaceful and silent walk, a slow walk, where he fine-tunes with his feelings, his perception, and the place where then we are going to establish the cooperation. Then usually I ask the coachee if he or she wants to be guided in a moment of reconnection and self-alignment, or he wants to do something and I can join or not. So we all agree this. It's always a partnership with the client. It's not me necessarily proposing, or it's always within the coaching framing. And then across the session, we work with the place and what it offers for the client's agenda. So I may pose questions like, is there any aspect of the natural surroundings where you feel that this issue, this difficulty that you are considering is reflected? Or do you see a resource in the environment, metaphorically, out around us, where you would like to establish a dialogue, or with which you would like to connect and see if an insight can emerge? So it's about allowing the client to establish an inner dialogue with the natural surroundings and allowing a space for him or her to connect deeply with that landscape, either by observing or silence or just receiving inputs from the senses, and find ways to translate those inputs into ideas and insights. Or sometimes it happens that the coachee just goes away with missions to do after the sessions of deepening a certain aspect of the natural environment or a natural being that just popped in his mind. And so there's some research that he or she can do to find ideas in the behavior, in the ethology of some animals that we may have met. So it's all a process of receiving information, inputs from the senses, from intuition, and then applying it and translating it into actions, ideas, strategies that the coachee then can implement. Okay, so yeah, so it's about thinking outside of the box and learning to exercise that part of our brain that works analogically, which is something that indigenous traditions and indigenous people have always done. And let me check in with James. How much time do I have left now? Because we have shifted a little bit our timing, our schedule.
I think you've got 5 minutes on the original timetable.
Okay, so 5 more minutes, great, which is exactly what I needed to complete this part. So either we can take sessions with nature outdoors, or we can find ways to adapt the nature coaching sessions for indoors sessions. And these usually I do by creating in my studio a natural feeling, so using natural elements, objects, and for the studio, and fabrics and colors, so that it's indoors, but it's again anyway somehow as a feeling of nature. Then you can do nature coaching indoors by using a language inspired by nature. by using nature-inspired metaphors and guided visualizations. So usually, for example, my students build their set of different visualizations to connect with different elements. So with trees, with the rivers, with the mountain, with the volcano, and so on. We work with the body. We are nature. So sometimes we think that nature is only out there, but actually we are nature. We are apes, okay, some kind of nude apes, but we are primates. So working with the body means working with and with something that has an intelligence in direct connection and easier connection with the natural intelligence around us. And this is a practice that I use a lot. So I invite persons to really focus on the feeling that the issues, that the things that they are discussing, the coaching agenda. So how is this thing that you're talking about, how is it feeling? Where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel this thought in your body? Which sensations do you associate to the words you're saying? And how would you like to shift these, to create a change in these? And what can you do on a somatic level to change the feeling that this problem gives you? Using the body. So this practice is rooted in somatic awareness and embodied learning. And for me, I'm also a dance therapist, and for me, working throughout the body, through learning through embodied processes is something sometimes easier than changing my mind on something. So changing the way I feel about certain issues makes me also think differently to that issue. And for me, somehow it's easier than changing my mind. And it's also more effective. And then I use cards and prompts, which I can give you a sense of, like here. So we are designing a deck of cards, which will be the nature coaching cards. And I designed prompts to work with the nature outdoors or indoors, using these metaphors or natural language so that we can anyway interweave natural analogies in our discussion. And that's always usually very fruitful in terms of thinking outside of the box and accessing innovation or different strategies for learning and looking at our challenges. Mapping inspired by the different elements, and of course different ecosomatic practices which you will have. So after this workshop we will send you 2 audio guides with my voice, where I will guide you in a somatic connection practice and an ecosomatic connection practice. So you will have the chance to better understand and experiment firsthand what I mean with these words. You will also get a selection of this slide deck, where you will see, for example, one of these cards. So you can better understand also what I mean when I talk about working with natural symbolism and archetypes. And so you will see the card of the sun or some other prompts that can enable dialogue with natural elements and facilitate this emergence of insights. Then another thing that I use are adventure guides. These sometimes are homeworks that I give to that I agree with my clients if they are working on certain themes. Each of these environments is easily associated with some core themes, like, for example, the sea is for change, the volcano is for creativity enhancement, the desert is for envisioning, for connecting with your values, with your deeper part. The forest is for silence, deeper connection, growing, stress management. The mountain is for goal setting. So depending on the challenge that the client is bringing, sometimes I give him or her these things that I call adventure guides, so that they have things to do on their own to explore a specific topic in synergy with nature, and then we can discuss about their discoveries in the next session. And so basically that's the main things that I wanted to share. James, do you want to take it over?
Thank you very much. I think, Deanna, it's now the slides and the embodied awareness practice you were going to do.
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Oh, so it's still me, I forgot about it. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so yes, it's almost 7. We would like to create a moment of ease for you. So if you are in a place where you can stand up for a moment, it would be great, so that we can engage our bodies. We've been talking about embodied awareness until now with me, so let's do it. Okay, and so I would just like to invite you to stretch a little bit with me. For me, pleasure and activating the ability to feel pleasure in our bodies, to feel comfort, to release tensions is really part of what all human beings and all animals, I would say, do to create a place of ease and comfort. So if you just want to follow me as I stretch, and you can just even not follow me and find your movements, the movements that you need now to create ease and space and breath in your body in this moment. So I'm doing the movements that I need based on what I did today and my condition, the condition of my body. But find a way to let the movements that you need emerge. And as you do it, just follow your sensations and find a way to flow with your breath, aligned with your movement, and make it a space for not really doing something, but just following a flow. Or so it's not really an exercise, it's an experience of your body moving, following your pleasure to move and to breathe. And as you do it, if you can, listen to the sounds around you and find a way to move so that you feel in tune with your environment, so that your movement reflects the energy of your environment. I don't know what this means, but maybe it can become an indication to explore. So that you move in tune with what's around you, with the sounds, with the feelings around you. Okay. And if you can find a specific gesture that gives you good feelings in this moment. So a gesture that you can repeat a couple of times or 3 times or 4, that really makes you feel good. 1 or 2 gestures you can, or 3, that you can repeat, a short sequence that you can repeat, that gives you good feelings. And that you can tune into your breath. And you can repeat it a couple of times, like a small sequence. It makes you feel good. Okay. And when you're done, you can just take a moment of stillness and savor the echo of this short sequence that you just did. and see what it created inside your body, inside your feelings. And from here, you can go back to sitting very gently, keeping this deeper connection with you in this moment, and probably with a space of soft silence inside of you. And I'll share with you some images that will flow one into the other. I invite you to just immerse yourself in these images that I will present you, and feel from the inside what emerges in response to those images that you're now going to see. So if you can, watch the slideshow from the inside and not just from your eyes, but from a deeper space, and see what you notice. So this is an experiment. Let's see how it works for you. So there will be silence, so expect silence, and just immerse yourself in savoring those images that I'm now going to share in a moment. Okay. Okay, so this was the last one. And I'd like to ask you, what are you feeling in this moment? So calm, peace, connected, joy, moved, sadness, relaxed, connection, love, vibrant, emotional, beauty, a bit of sadness, amazed, connectedness, fascinated, part of much, a bigger, oh my God, it moves so fast. Struggle, humbly honored, sadness about city's greatness, touched, lucky, emotional. Yeah, some of the eyes are really, really touching. Harmony, whole, tuning, quiet, warm, delight, grounded, teary, human, stronger, kinship, compassion. Yeah. Yes. So the idea is that when we touching feeling means either connecting with some sadness because we feel it. We feel that there is death out there, but there is also life out there. And when we are moved in our hearts, then we are moved to action in a much more effective way. So the idea behind all this is that this is what also James said before: we protect what we love. So Craig Charlequist, he's an eco-psychologist I trained with some years ago, great person, must read. And he says, from the 1980s to today, we have accumulated an infinity of information on the critical state of the planet's health and life on Earth. Yet never, as in the last 40 years, we have contributed to its destruction. So my approach to impacting the climate crisis is working towards reviving our heart connection with our planet. The feeling of belonging, the feeling that we are one, that you were mentioning in the word cloud. For me, the heart is an organ of sense, an organ of sense making. And so one of the ways that we can impact other people for the better is allowing them to experience their belonging, their comparticipation with life, and awaken this calling of love. So this was the experiment about biophilia, which is a Greek word, which means bios, vita, philein, which means love. So this is really the key to motivate people to acting for our planet, because we protect what we love. If we don't experience nature, if we don't have connection with it, we cannot feel a love because we don't know it. So first connection, then getting to know, like, you know, when you go to a date with a person, okay, you set a date, then you get to know each other, you frequent each other, and then you get to fall in love. And sometimes this is one of the things that I do with my groups. We enter the wood and I invite the people for a forest bathing experience, for example, or a mindful meditative walk. And I say, okay, let's figure out that we are going to a date with the forest. Who knows? Will you like it? Will it like you? And let's enter the wood with this excitement where you don't know if it will be the perfect match or not. And you can experiment that too in your next walk in a wood. Try to access and meet the wood as if it is, because it is, a different form of life. And to have your mindset also including the subjectivity of the forest looking at you. Will it like you? Will you be liked? And then if you want to write me your perception, it's going to be a pleasure to read about your experimentations. And James, it's on to you.
Thank you, Deanna. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of minutes, so I wonder if I might just maybe pick one of the comments and see if somebody would like to expand on them. I noticed there was one here from Gwen. If you're still on there, Gwen, you said that you really felt a strong feeling of connection. I wondered if you'd like to share a little more about that.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I guess I don't know how to I think it was those eyes and the fact they were looking at me with and some of the actions were very human between those animals, you know, the two foxes almost kissing each other, the lioness roaring at their little one, and I'm thinking home learning and how that actually relates to my own life as in my relationship with my own kids. So it's almost like that connection with the animals and where they're living and the surroundings. I mean, those beautiful pictures of nature, which I'm longing to see again, because I've been stuck here for the last God knows how many months, only seeing my walls or my local park, but nothing more. So I think that was extending those bonds to, there's something bigger out there, and we're part of it, even though we are very remote at the moment. So I think that's where I felt a really strong connection with all of that, and my own experience as a human being with my own family.
That's lovely. That, I'm sure that's resonated with lots of people. It certainly did with me. Thank you for sharing that, Gwen. And this is the section which is about what we've talked about so far, and I'm going to expand a little bit on nature connection, but how we talk about so far, how does it relate to our coaching practice? So I would imagine, given the international nature of this audience, that many of us are members of the International Coach Federation, and that's what I'm drawing from in some of the words that are chosen. But I think whatever professional body you're a member of, there will probably be a very similar set of anchors for your practice. So I'm hoping that you will relate, no matter what your coaching background. The definition of nature connectedness originally comes from Mayer and France in 2004, and thank you, Deanna, for sharing a reframe they did 5 years later. But it kind of says the same thing. It's about experience, it's about sense, it's about a oneness, and it's about the natural world. And I think for me that's perhaps a little dry, but it is very clear, I think. There's been a lot of work, especially in the last 5 or so years, in science and positive psychology, as it started to receive some funding finally, to have a look back at some of the principles that were set out by Edward Wilson and Stephen Keller in the Biophilia Hypothesis, and start to test them, which is what they always wanted. They always said this is a hypothesis, it's a theory. We don't have the science to back it yet. But over time, more and more science has shown that their theory stands up. And what's really interesting, this model here is something that I drew as part of the Human Nature Partnership, but it demonstrates what the science is now saying, which is there are 5 behaviors, relations that we can have with nature that makes us more nature connected. And the evidence is, through experimentation, that people who do these things in nature benefit from nature connectedness in the way that the science says they do. So we've talked about some of that already. Eudaimonic well-being, in other words, how satisfied am I about my life? Your sense of self-confidence and self-worth. We can talk about awe leading to gratitude and pro-social connections, ability to make ethical decisions and so on. So there's a whole bunch of benefits from nature connectedness, and not least the fact that it drives action for the environment. But the things that matter that we need to do in nature when we're out there to create that are these things. So contact in the first place, it's not enough just to be outside for a walk in the fresh air. That has benefits for health. It prevents obesity, it saves money from our health services. But in terms of nature connectedness, which is aimed at eudaimonic well-being particularly, it's about contact in which you're deeply contacting with nature and activating your senses. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about meaning. So what meaning are you making or attaching or attributing or taking from a relationship with nature? The third is compassion. What are you caring about? What are you loving? What are you giving back? The fourth is about emotional connection. How do we feel when we're out in nature? And the fifth is the aesthetic appreciation, which was a fundamental plank of the Biophilia Hypothesis in the first place, which has been reframed by Miles Richardson and others at the University of Derby as beauty. So really nice, really simple. Actually, our National Trust in this country has taken those on as a public engagement tool now, and helping people when they go outside, not just be outside in the fresh air and walk the dog, but to engage with their surroundings. And what I've done is start to map. I'm playing with this. It's, you know, it's a work in progress, so tell me what you think. But started to map down the left-hand side those 5 components of nature connectedness, and along the bottom, the things that we do as coaches that are set out by our profession. So those are from the new ICF competency framework. And in the nexus between those things lies I think, some of the real features that Deanna's talked about of what nature-connected coaching is, what nature-based coaching is. So, for example, in the foundation phase of a coaching relationship, there is a connection to emotion in terms of well-being, and contact in terms of your senses and your well-being, the ability to center. So when Deanna talks about the imperative of coaches to create their own nature connectedness so they can then help others connect, that's in that foundation phase. And there are lots of other aspects of nature-based coaching which I'm really interested in, and just a flavor here that show up. So the opportunity to experience the natural child in a safe place without judgment, to play again, and then reposition that natural child in context of the adult that you want to become. Transactional analysis classic, but opportunity to play in nature is something that we lose when we become older, usually. Creative thinking, we've talked a bit about. Senses, metaphor, incredibly powerful in nature metaphor. The linguist Zoltan Kovacs showed that by far and away about 2/3 of the metaphors that we derive from in the English language, at least, are from the more than human space. So they're about physical relationships, they're about physical factors, they're about nature. And then finally, not, you know, and I've touched on it, this eco-action and community. So I'm just going to touch on 3 things and tell you a little bit about the science and then about how they interact. And this will really be quite brief. So the first one's creative thinking. So coaching is about doing some really good thinking, isn't it, essentially? And feeling and sensing and so on. And there's been work by Aspinall and people like that, where they've strapped EEGs to people's heads. They've sent them out into city environments with concrete and no plants, and they've sent them out into nature, and they've measured what the difference is. And the difference is stark, that just 25 minutes in nature can actually create measurable impacts in terms of how creatively somebody can think, how well they solve problems. And this is about activating the default mode network. And what that does is it turns down the prefrontal cortex, the noise bit, and it makes more space for us to do creative work and solve problems. So there's a relationship here between, as coaches, communicating effectively, evoking awareness in our clients, and helping our clients make meaning that is enhanced by being in nature. So why not? Senses and sensitivities, you can all name 5 senses. We probably don't use them anything like as much as we should or could. Out in nature, the opportunity to engage your senses is dramatically different. So there's a chap called Michael Cohen, who's a forefather of eco-psychology, and he talks about 54 natural web string senses and sensitivities. So things like a sense of hunger, I'm feeling it right now, a sense of the weather changing, humility, stress. These are other forms of sense that we can play in, sensitivity that we can play in. So it's a chance to link noticing and beauty, so inner and outer, with, again, that ability to listen actively and communicate effectively as coaches. I think there's a really interesting nexus. And I'll just, you know, leave it with the truism that what you observe at face value in life does not mean that's what's there. And those of us that have pets know this, right? You hear the postman 5 minutes before you do. The postman is there. You just don't observe it. So there's an opportunity really to expand that by working in nature. And finally, talked about eco-action. And this is where coaching is about action. It's about learning. It's about growth. And the coaching in nature space through nature connectedness gives us a chance to develop the compassion, to learn to love the place, to get to know it, and therefore to do something to protect it. So we can directly explore outdoors in coaching in much richer ways, I think, than we can indoors. the relationship we have with the environment and with community and the systems that are created by both of those things. And bottom line is that nature connected people will take more action for the environment, and hopefully we won't lose any more black rhinos and so on. So that's the end of that segment. Now we're going to give you the chance to do some thinking and talking of your own in small groups. So I will hand over to Deanna to manage that bit of the session.
Yes, I'm now creating the small groups, and so you are going to be automatically. Yeah, that was really profound. One of the best definitions that I found about body, earth, and place is by Andrea Olsen, and it's actually the framework behind my courses, where Andrea Olsen is a dancer, a teacher of anatomy and ecology at a university in the States. And she's been writing a very beautiful book and teaching for all her life about the body and the earth. And she says that the body is an aspect of the earth. And so the place is a specific part of the earth body that we connect to through our bodies. So that's for me is really an interesting way to see the interconnection between us, the planet, and the specific part of the planet that we connect with in our biome or ecoregion or bioregion. The name of the book is Body and Earth.
Thank you. So for everyone who's just come back from the breakout room, if you'd like to go into the chat, Deanna's asked that we put in there any reflections and feedback from the questions that you had in your breakout rooms. And if you have any other specific questions, please add them in too. Right, I'm going to, in the interest of time, Deanna, I'm going to pick one to try and answer. So Rika asked one. Hi Rika, nice to see you. And it was about how can we move nature coaching online. I think Emma also asked something similar, and I suspect this is a theme for a lot of us at the moment. I'll give you an example of what I do, and then Deanna may have something else to add. I'm doing all my coaching virtually, and I have been for a long time because we've been in lockdown in the UK for a very long time. And I can do that indoors in a more traditional setting, but that doesn't mean that nature can't be part of the coaching practice. So even simple questions like, what does the planet expect from this? Or what does the environment expect from you? Or what does your community expect from you? Create a meta perspective within a more traditional coaching session, and there's an opportunity to bring nature in. But one of the things that I particularly like to do is to do what I call together alone. Other people have other words for it, but it's headphones, walking, both coach and client in a natural space where we live, and doing coaching the old-fashioned way, which is using our voices and without the screens. And it can be really, really fantastic and really transformational. Incredible things can happen that you wouldn't expect from that type of arrangement. So yes, in a virtual world, nature-based coaching can continue, justice coaching can continue. Deanna, did you want to say anything more?
Yeah, I love the earphones and walking in your place and the coaches in his or her place. Absolutely agree. The other aspect for me is working with the body, even if we are online. So that's for me a way to create a space of connection with ourselves, and then using, again, sometimes this is a Kickstarter for my session. So when I start the session, I ask the person, okay, how would you like to start this session? What do you need in this moment? How can I guide you? Or do you want me to propose something and we start together? And usually in that moment, my client asks for me to guide just a simple visualization, and I ask, okay, on where on the planet would you like me to take you? With which element would you like me to play for you now? And usually that's an in the moment invention that I make up out of her needs or his needs. And this allows me, and I have to say that I don't feel so much limited by the fact of being online. So we just focus together on the same natural elements, and then I just use my creativity in the moment to facilitate a moment of connection with that element, and that also works as a kickstart, as a starter for the session. So I may ask, okay, why? What did you feel during this guided experience that I facilitated? And why do you think you've asked to connect, for example, with the sea, or with the river, or with the clouds, or with the tree? And so that leads into the coaching agenda, the coaching sessions, basically. So that's another way that comes up in my mind.
Fantastic. I wanted to ask somebody here, and I'm probably going to make a terrible job of pronouncing your name, Modesar. I'm wondering if you might just share a little bit more about your question and whether you had any ideas.
Hi everyone. You can call me Mo, so you can avoid making mistakes with my name, which is often mispronounced. It's Madassa. Very nice to meet you all. And our breakout room was amazing, and this whole thing is just amazing. And you know, I'm so happy to be here and meet you all. I've totally forgot the question you asked, James, but if you repeat it, I'll try. I'll try and re-ground myself and try and answer it.
Thank you, Mo. I'm passing it back to you, I suppose. You asked. It was amazing to see so many people connected with a similar goal. How can we all stay connected?
Ah, yes.
So I was wondering
indeed.
if you had your own ideas.
Yes, well, you know, when I entered into this room, I had a feeling that you guys all knew each other. For some reason, there's just a feeling of we already are connected in some way, and you know, I don't believe in coincidences, and you know, I feel that maybe we were meant to all be here together. 94 people at 6 o'clock on what day of the week are we? Thursday evening. I missed my evening dinner to be here, and I'm sure many, I think James mentioned he's hungry as well. So I think there's a big intention for something important here. And I feel if there isn't already, that we can create a platform to connect. There are lots of ways, you know, a LinkedIn group, a Facebook group, a WhatsApp group, another WhatsApp group, or some way, you know. I'm happy to connect. I work in a university. I work with students. I work with you know, in sort of the academic side, and I also I chair TEDx, a TEDx platform, and I think I'll contact James and Diana. I think I'd like to invite you as speakers to on a TEDx, and we need to shout more about this and share with the world and bring more people in. So I'm happy to get you guys on as TEDx speakers over this summer and bring in thousands of more people. You know, we had 1 million views on our last TEDx event. Wow. So check that out, TEDx Aston University in Birmingham in the UK. So yeah, I'm happy to create a platform as well. Whatever, you know, I'm here. We're here for the earth. You know, we haven't got a long time, so let's do something quick and get moving. So I'm with you
so much. Your enthusiasm is a gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. I love Birmingham too, so any excuse to go back to Birmingham.
You're welcome.
That's fantastic. Let's keep in touch. And I'm sure others here have got ideas about platforms and ways that we can do that. Perhaps keep it simple and grow it from there. But
yeah, we definitely can have a talk, and also come up with some proposals, because I think that bringing on this conversation can really benefit us as persons and also help us make the impact that we want to make with our work with clients or in any community where we want to really create a movement around this. We all need to be more nature connected. Nature needs us, and that's part of my mission, and that's part of what I really want to do. And I feel really moved about this connection with you all. I feel really moved and happy. Mm-hmm.
Me too. Thank you very much. I'd really like to just give the last couple of minutes to somebody who'd like to voice something that they haven't. Laura, you put your hand up first on my screen anyway.
Yeah, I've been on a lot of webinars and a lot of mini courses in the last months, and this is the best one. And in every way, you've done, first of all, you guys have done a really great job in conveying this to us. And it's truly exciting. And I agree with Mo and the other people in my breakout room. You know, I can't actually believe that I haven't been doing this. My two loves, coaching and nature, it's where I go for my healing and my connection. And why have I not been doing that with my coaching clients? So I am really in. I would really like to connect with everybody here. I agree with Mo. I think something a little bit energetic and special is you've started something here, Diana and James. I'm very grateful, very appreciative, and really touched. And I'm going to be more involved. It's not the last you've seen of me, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Stick with us.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Yes, thanks a lot. Yeah.
And sadly, I do need to eat. All good things must come to an end for now. But I hope we'll have another opportunity very soon to reconnect. And in the meantime, we have telephones and email. Yeah. And so please, you know where we are. In fact, this is the next slide, yes. Dear. If you put that on the screen, then you know how to get hold of us.
Absolutely. Let me share this slide. You are going to receive a follow-up email from us, so you will also be.
Before I hand back to Jamie in a minute, just to close.
Yes, and right before that, we'd like to share a Slido once more. So you will get this slide as well, and all our contacts. So you will get everything. And
registered via Eventbrite, and so we should have your email addresses. If by any chance you ticked the bit in Eventbrite that said don't contact me, I don't want to hear from you ever again, and you've changed your mind, then you can send us the email in the chat now, but otherwise we should have it. We will together, Deanna and I, will put together an email for you probably on Monday, which will include a bunch of offerings. So for me, I'm going to be sending a short guide to why coaching nature that describes some of the key evidence and some of the features that I started drawing out in that map. There is a video there from the last webinar I ran on my own for the CCA, the last 24-hour conversation. So you could watch that. And also the being in nature practice, which is called Sense Around, where we use the bird song. There is that practice, and there are other things available as well. You'll have access to a special part of the website with all of those materials on. And Deanna is going to share a number of things as well. So she talked about the reference list, and that's something that we've contributed to together. It's not everything, but it's pretty exhaustive. So you'd be reading for a long time. So we can send you that. Deanna's going to share some of her practices. She talked about guided somatic practices, which is wonderful. An invitation to her podcast and some articles and other podcast links, and I will also share a podcast link. The other thing that Deanna's going to send us, which I think might be really of interest to you, is a test which you can take that gives you some sense of diagnostic of how nature connected you are. Something that we've both been playing with, I've been really interested in, is how can coaching create an evidence base that shows that as a result of coaching, people are becoming more nature connected and therefore taking more action. But this test exists in the meantime, so we'll also send that. That, I think, is the end. Deanna, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you for everyone who dialed in. We had 97 at the most. We had 206 tickets and we had 500 views of the website. So I think there is clearly a huge appetite here. I'm going to hand over to Jamie now just to finish off the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, wow. It was amazing. I think I hope I probably speak for all of us. I think it's been a privilege to be kind of part of this for the last couple of hours, and certainly from my perspective, it's a real honour just to be able to say thank you as a kind of as a closing thing. And just from an individual perspective, I think you've taken me to the top of mountains and to streams and sitting in forests over the last couple of hours, which is quite an amazing achievement from a study in Bristol. So thank you. And I think, if I reflect back to some of the stuff that everyone kind of asked for at the beginning in terms of that connection, that learning, I think it's just been there in abundance. So thank you for being so generous, and thank you for such a rich experience over the last couple of hours. I think, and just the messages, I think, say it all on the chat. And I think you have started something. It clearly resonates so clearly with so many people, and it's so powerful. So thank you both so much for all the time and effort you put into it, and just for a fantastic couple of hours.